In this video I'm going to show you how to make these two really simple storage boxes in two different ways. I think you'll find them really useful for little bits and bobs in your sewing room, maybe something to put your bobbins in or spare spools. Maybe your clips would go in these really well, but also to use for things like things in the bathroom, cotton wool buds and little bits of makeup or hair accessories and things like that. They're only each made from 2 squares of fabric plus an interfacing, and I've used a Lilac H640, so it gives it a little bit of stability, but it's still quite soft. You could use a firmer interfacing like a Decaville if you preferred instead. They're very quick to make, they're fun to make. These are going to be ideal if you do craft fairs or if you're planning ahead to birthdays and Christmases and on occasions where you give gifts, because you can change the fabric up. You could even make these from a laminated fabric if you wish, so they're going to be suitable for anybody and everybody. And here's how I'm going to make them. So these are my 2 squares of fabric I've chosen for this box. This is the one that we're going to make first of all. And these measure 12 inches square or 30 centimetres. I will put all of the cutting instructions in the description box right underneath the video, so click on that. But it's really simple. You can actually make these in any size you like. So 2 squares of fabric and 1 square of H640 fusible fleece. As it's fusible, I'll need to iron this onto the wrong side of one piece of fabric. And to be honest, it doesn't matter which piece of fabric you're going to use, whether it's the lining fabric or whether it's the outer fabric. So there are other fusible fleeces on the market. I know Bose will do a very good one. I just choose to use a Lilac H640. I like the way that you can steam it on there with a nice hot iron and it doesn't tend to bubble. But again, if you wanted to make this a little bit firmer, then go for a stiffer interfacing. I wouldn't go as far as using a foam. I think that's going to be just a little bit too thick for this project. So a little bit of steam, make sure it's well and truly stuck down, and iron as hot as your fabric will take. I'm just going to press the contrasting fabric here as well. Then we'll take these 2 pieces, place them right sides together. I'll just hold that with a few pins, and then we're going to sew all the way around the outside. So leave a small turning gap in one side and we're going to go all the way around the edge. So that's where I'm going to leave my turning gap, and I'm just using 1/4 of an inch or a 6mm seam allowance. I just seem to have lost my foot pedal. Here we go. Then we'll take out the pins, and I'm going to snip straight across the corners, and that's going to help to keep those corners nice and pointy when I turn this the right side out. So let's turn this through. Go and push out the corners. I'm just going to use a turning tool just to push the points out. And then I'll give that another quick press just to make the edges nice and sharp. You could make this a little bit firmer if you wish by using a spray starch or a best press or something like that to add a little bit of stiffness to your fabric. So I'm just pressing around the edge. When I come to the opening, I'm just going to fold each side inwards and press across there, and then we're going to top stitch all the way around the edge, and that will close the opening as we sew. So again, top stitch quite close to the edge all the way around. I'm lengthening the stitch slightly, so I'm on a 2.8 for this one, and we'll sew. Then you're going to decide which one of the fabrics you want to be on the outside and which one on the inside. So for instance, my heavily patterned fabric on this little box is on the inside and the plainer one is on the outside. The one that's on the outside is the one that we're going to do the stitching on. So I'm going to use the paler side for my outside. And I'm going to fold this in half diagonally. And I'm going to measure 3.5 inches across the open end here and draw a line straight down towards the fold. And we'll do the same on the opposite corner. So across that line there, 3.5 inches from this point, draw a line straight across. And then we're going to sew across these two lines, and then we'll do the same with the opposite sides. So we'll open this out. So we're concentrating now on this corner, 3.5 inches from that point, and mark, and the same on this side. 3.5 inches. Your 3.5 inches, by the way, is 9 centimeters. And mark. And then we'll sew those two lines. And I'm just going to snip away all of these loose ends to make it tidy, because this is finished now. Snip and snip. There we go. Then all we need to do is to fold back these pointy bits. And you're creating little pockets in the side, which are a perfect size excuse me, for, gosh, these loose ends, for storing little thread spools. So again, let's fold this back. You can put a little stitch in there to hold it in place if you wish, but it should stay. So just arrange these neatly. There's my last one. Again, just snip these loose little ends off to make it tidy. You could give that a final press if you like, and even maybe press it around the base to make that a little bit squarer. Doesn't really need it though, it's going to hold its shape really well. So that's box number 1 finished. Let's move on to box number 2. So the first stages of the second box are exactly the same as the first. So I have my outer fabric and my backing fabric, and I've already fused fusible fleece, my H640, to the inside, sewn around the edge, turn the right side out and top stitch. The only difference between this and the previous box is I've made this an inch bigger. So this is 13 inches square, 33 centimetres. But experiment with different sizes. You can make these boxes a lot larger if you wish, or you could make them tiny, as long as your fabric's square. So what I'm going to do here, well, this time I've chosen to have my pattern fabric on the outside. So on the first box it was on the inside, the second one is on the outside. That's up to you, whichever way around you'd like them to be. So I'm going to fold in half this way. So the previous box was corner to corner, and this one is just sewing opposite. And I'm going to measure 2.5 inches this time across the corner. And I actually find if you have a cutting mat with markings on there, you're going to find that easier. So I'm going to line this up with 2.5 inches here and 2.5 inches across this way. If you don't have a mat like this, then just measure 2.5 inches down the side and mark, measure 2.5 inches across this way and mark. I'm going to do 1, 2, 2.5 takes me to there and to there. And then draw a line straight across. Now I don't have a pale chalk with me at the moment, so I'm using a green friction pen, which I can see. I'm not sure if you can pick that up. So I'd normally use a pale coloured chalk when I'm doing this, so I can see the line. Also, you can see the line anyhow. So again, 2.5 inches across the bottom, 2.5 inches across the side. Takes me to here. And you could try varying the depth of these as well. If you go 3.5 inches, you're going to have a narrower box, but it's going to be taller. Let's move that to one side and we'll just sew across these lines. And snip off the untidy threads again, and then we'll open this out and fold these two sides together, and again measure my 2.5 inches down here. This time I'm just going to pop a pin in there to hold it. And then do the same on the opposite side here, so matching up those corners. Two and a half inches, 2.5 inches, and draw my line straight across. And then we'll sew across those two pieces. So flip it over, I'll take that pin out while I think about it, and sew this one. So take out the pin, again snip off any untidy loose ends, and then I'm going to kind of bounce this until the base is square, and open up each one of these little side pieces here. So squish those open. And I'm just going to sew straight across here on the sewing machine. If you want that to be invisible, then of course you can sew that on your by hand if you prefer. We don't have to sew it at all, it'll just stick out a little bit if you don't. So I'm going to do this with all of those 4 points. So again, I've just sewn across the back fabric, so I do have a tiny little pocket there. Snip that off and repeat. So squish this open, flatten it down and just sew across. That's it. And then all that's left to do is to fold back these points. Now it's up to you what you want to do with these. Personally, I've used a little bit of glue and some clips and just glued that down. If you wanted to hand sew, then of course that's very acceptable. You can maybe pop a button into the corner as well and secure that way. I don't have a problem using a little bit of glue. This isn't something that's likely to go in the washing machine, so the glue is going to hold very well. But again, if you did want to decorate, then maybe a little button in the navy blue for this particular fabric would work really well just to finish that off. Or you could maybe add something like a little tassel to the end, or whatever kind of trim you have if you wanted to, or you can just leave it plain like I have here. So I'll pop a pin in that one. I seem to only have one, whoops, large clip to hand. So let's pin it instead. Doesn't really make any difference. And I'm only using a slight amount of glue, so a thin layer of glue, so it's going to dry very quickly. So probably by the time I've come back to the start with my folding, that's going to be nice and dry and ready. Last one here. Don't forget to put the top back on your glue, because it tends to just carry on pouring out of the tube if you don't. There. So I'll leave that just a second to dry. You could give it a final press if you wanted to, and like I said before, maybe crease out the bottom sections. In fact, we could do that while we're waiting for the glue to dry, couldn't we? So let's take the iron, fold this from corner to corner, and just give it a press with a bit of steam. On all 4 sides. That'll do. Turn my iron off. So pins can come out now. So there is another little box finished, matching and coordinating perfectly with my first little box. And as you can see, they are very simple to make, but I think you find these kind of things really useful just for keeping bits and bobs in, like all of these that tend to spill all over the table. Keep them nice and neat and tidy and in place. And what a nice gift idea that would be, even if you're making something like homemade biscuits or cakes, maybe wrapped up, or if you have maybe a fake plant in a little pot, would look lovely, maybe in a row, all the different ones alternating across your windowsill would look fabulous, I think, as well. But they're purposeful, they're useful, they're fun, and they're easy, and that's the main thing. So I hope you've enjoyed again the tutorial. Keep looking out for more. I shall see you again next time. Bye bye.